Okay.
Hello, thanks ever so much for joining us. What we'd like to do is we'd like to feedback to you the responses from the survey that you kindly filled in. We had over 400 people responding to the survey about how lockdown's been for you, whether you've been in school or out of school, and really your experiences during the summer term, and also your thoughts about returning to school in September. So what we've done is put together feedback, and we're going to feedback each different thing that you've responded to show you the range of responses, and you can see where you fit and your responses hopefully, and the wider responses from lots of different people. So hopefully you'll find this quite an interesting reference, and maybe seeing some of your responses too. So thanks for joining us. My name's Sarah. I'm an educational psychologist working in Barnet.
And my name's Matt. I'm also an educational psychologist working in Barnet.
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm also one of the educational psychologists in Barnet.
Hi, I'm Parminder, another educational psychologist in Barnet.
So we asked you, how have you felt during lockdown? And this is just an overview of how you guys answered this question. So about 7% said that they were very happy. About 26% said they were happy. And then 51% said they were okay. And 14% said they were unhappy. And about 2% said they were very unhappy during lockdown.
So we asked you to tell us a little bit more about how you felt for those of you that were out of school during lockdown. So these are the main themes that came up from some of the things that you told us. So some of the things that came up were some of you felt safe, some of you felt okay, some of you had a little bit of mixed feelings. So feeling different, but you cope well, feeling a bit scary, a bit anxious, boring, hard to work, difficult or bad, and weird. So some of the things that you told us, for those of you from years 7 to 9, were that it was weird, unusual, lost. Some of you found it difficult to concentrate doing some of the work that was sent home because of distractions and no one to help you. A lot of you said that you missed school, you missed your friends. You found the time quite strange, but also good. You found that you had a busy routine. Some of you found it a little bit frustrating, a little bit hard. And again, you found it different, but that you felt you coped well. And for those of you from year 9 onwards, these were some of the things that you told us. So similar themes again, but a lot of you felt that you found it different, but you've been with your family. You found it difficult to deal with schoolwork. You felt okay, but would be better if you were at school. You missed interaction with friends, hard to motivate yourself to study. Some of you felt alone and abandoned, whilst others felt that it was relaxing and personalised. So it's important to remember that these feelings can change from day to day, and some days you may have felt a little bit happier, and some days you may have felt a little bit more anxious and a bit more worried. So that kind of covers a lot of the different experiences and different feelings those of you that didn't go to school felt during this period.
We asked people who'd been in school during lockdown about their experience, and we split the results into years 7, 8 and 9, and then 14 plus, so 10, 11, and then sixth form and college responses. What we found was that people in years 7, 8 and 9, it really depended, quite a bit depended on how prepared they felt the school was for them when they first arrived, whether the school was set up to receive them, whether they were even in their own school. So probably the responses were about a third of people saying, actually, it was a pretty weird experience being in school during lockdown. Weird because it was so different, because people's own teachers that they knew and friends weren't there. So felt, yeah, pretty weird, strange, odd, abnormal. And then also the social distancing thing. Because if we remember when people started coming into school during lockdown, we were all in a completely different situation, and the social distancing and things we were getting our heads around, and a lot of people were getting their heads around that within school, and that felt quite strange. And then the rest of the third was this sort of mixture, it being okay, but people either finding a variety of responses on different days, different weeks, or some people generally finding that their total experience, it was pretty boring or stressful, or some people actually found that what they really appreciated was that it was a lot of thought had gone into the social distancing and keeping things clean, sanitized and safe. So there was these splits. Some people feeling different things on different days, and some people generally feeling it was one way or another way. And then when we went on to look at the responses for people in year 10 upwards, it was really we got a different type of reporting. So again, weird came out as the biggest thing, and actually 44% of you made comments that it felt weird. Because it was so different to normal school, and people talked about adjusting during that period. For example, someone said at first it did feel weird because we hadn't been in for so long, but it got better. So best bits, really, 1 in 5 of you talked about best bits, which was really the interaction, and people said strange but happy to be in, happy to go back, and good to have face to face, even if it was only limited. There were issues raised by some people who were in school during lockdown, really about feeling sort of quite isolated, that they really didn't feel that there was that much help for them. So, for example, just a laptop in a room, although I normally need help, or talking about the organisation of the school, either not being allowed in, even though they needed to be in because the parents were key workers, or the parent that they live with is a key worker, yet not being allowed to attend, and organisational issues like no lunch, and not being informed about what to expect, and so a lot of teething issues about going into school. But also then schools that were prepared and were offering a safe environment were appreciated by some of you. So yes. And then when people were talking about anything else that they wanted to add, really, so we asked, are there extra things that you'd like to tell us really about lockdown, and things in lockdown? And we got some really big themes from you, things that you missed, the routine and the social side of school being gone, and just gone so quickly and unexpectedly, and how that was. And then people talked about really some of the problems either with school and communication with school, or with the work side. So the problems with school really were about the nature of the teaching, how hard it is to learn new stuff, especially when that new stuff is basically online teaching in the form of worksheets and PowerPoints without interaction, without live lessons. Really, some people really being grateful for live lessons, but others not really receiving any, and finding that actually made it pretty hard going. And also seeing that work piling up. So just feeling daunted by how many pieces of work were actually piling up and no one to talk to or help prioritise the work, or even delete the work. So it just started to feel quite oppressive for some people. So then, of course, there's quite a few concerns about that, either the workload being too much or just not being varied enough, and making it hard to get on with it. So they were some of the themes. And then also people having either mixed feelings about going back, looking forward to some things but being cautious about certain things, or really actually only just expressing things that they were looking forward to only, especially the routine and friendships and, you know, life getting a little bit more back to normal. When people talking a lot about just hopes for getting back to normal, but then also feeling the anxiety of the reasons why lockdown came in the first place, being forced to attend, perhaps being in social bubbles that aren't your social bubble, and also people in year 7 really talking about how they weren't quite adjusted to secondary school, and they were getting readjusted to a completely new environment, friendships being settled, etc. And then the lockdown throwing that in the mix and leading them to be quite unsettled or feeling not quite engaged with a new friendship group, and yet not matching with previous friendship groups either. So those sorts of issues. A couple of you said you hope school never comes back. And shared those hopes for the future. And then the remaining theme that you were really talking about was about motivation and accessing lessons. So saying the hopes for the second wave, that if there are local lockdowns and if things bubble up and down again during the autumn term, there hopes that the schools sort of learn about remote teaching and do a lot more provisions such as Zoom and Teams, because they really need some live lessons. And people talking a lot about that, because finding that they really need structure and not just being given things for the week and then being left to get on with it, because it's very hard to keep up motivation and check understanding, and that sort of the boring and lonely aspect that they really hope they won't have to face if things bubble up in the autumn term.
Okay, so we asked, do you have any worries about going back to school? And about 6% of you said that they, 6% of the people that answered the questionnaire said they were very confident. 28% said they were confident. About 38% said that they were not worried or confident, kind of feeling sort of in the middle. And 25% said they were worried. About 3% said they were very worried about going back to school.
So we asked.
Oh, sorry.
So we asked you to tell us a little bit more about whether you were feeling worried or confident, and what might be some of the reasons why you were feeling this way. Some of you were feeling confident and ready to go back because you're really looking forward to seeing your friends and interacting with everybody again. Some of you were quite concerned that you were quite behind with your learning. There was a worry that you might be feeling like you're failing, that there were huge gaps in your learning, that you might feel that you've not actually learned anything this year and you're worried how you're going to catch up, be ready for next year. So there were quite a few concerns about learning and how it had been for you over lockdown. But a lot of you really wanted to return to school, really wanted to get back into that normal routine, be part of that school community, part of school activities, and just have that structure again in your lives. Some of you were quite concerned that school might not yet be prepared to welcome you back in terms of coronavirus and safety. Some were feeling that the government perhaps had not outlined how schools should be supporting students, what resources should be available, whether the schools would be able to manage social distancing in an effective way. concerns about getting to school and whether that would be safe on public transport in rush hour. So there were quite a few concerns around that preparation. And I guess kind of linked to that was worried about the changes that you might experience when you get to school. So not really knowing quite what to expect, actually enjoying your time at home and kind of enjoying the less pressure, being able to do things at your own pace, not having to kind of rush around so much, kind of anticipating, you know, how would that day be? How would they manage to effectively keep people apart but still enable interactive lessons and times where you're socialising with each other? So there are quite a few concerns, but also some excitement as well.
So when we asked, how are you feeling about going back to school? About 12% said that they were very happy about going back. About 39% said they were happy about going back. Another 39% said they were okay about going back. 7% said they were unhappy about going back to school. About 3% said they were very unhappy about going back to school. But as you can see, the majority of the people were that we gave the questionnaire to were okay, happy, or very happy about going back to school. Okay, so we asked, what are you not looking forward to about going back to school? And one of the big things you said was actually learning. There were some people that were really concerned that because they had had quite a long period outside of school, they were worried that when they go back into school, they might maybe feel like a failure, or it might take them longer to do work, and they might have some difficulty sort of preparing for their exams and their mocks. A lot of young people also had concerns about coronavirus as well. They were concerned that there might be another lockdown. They were a bit concerned that all of the restrictions that were in place and having to follow the 1 meter rule and socially distance as well. I think this has come up a little bit earlier, but a few people said that they were a bit concerned about public transport and having maybe getting the bus and how they would manage social distancing in that way. And another thing people were not looking forward to was obviously changes to their routine. So going back to early starts, getting up early in the morning and starting that routine again. So these were some of the things young people were not looking forward to. Then we asked, what are you looking forward to? So what are some of the things that you're really excited about going back to school for? And one of the biggest things that came up with this was friends. So seeing my mates, seeing my friends, being able to actually have a chat with your mates again, because I know a lot of people have had a long period of time where they maybe haven't got to see their friends as much. Learning in school. Interestingly, a lot of young people were actually saying that they wanted to have a teacher there to help them and have proper interactive lessons again, and being able to have teachers that actually really teach them as well. Back to routine. Actually, a lot of young people were quite excited about the idea of having a normal structure to their days again, and having that kind of predictable routine, and also seeing teachers. So having time with sort of teachers again was raised as being quite important for young people.
We asked young people what would help. So what would help make that transition back to school go a bit smoother for you? And there were some really fantastic suggestions. So these are the topics that came up. So thinking about having some adjusted travel arrangements, there were kind of, as we mentioned, fears around using public transport, maybe thinking about whether transport could be provided. Other young people suggested maybe that school started at a slightly different time so that not everyone was travelling at the same time, or maybe even ended at a different time, whether there could be specific buses just for school students, or more buses, or more double-decker buses, just to increase capacity and make sure that students were able to travel safely. The young person that was quoting here, they were actually concerned for people in the community, that there are a lot of elderly and vulnerable people, and therefore wanted to kind of be aware that that might also impact the community as well as the students. Young people really felt that help with learning was important, so being able to go over some missed bits that they maybe didn't manage to do by themselves in lockdown, Perhaps they were quarantined or self-isolating, and having that slow, gradual build-up of work over time rather than kind of really starting with a full timetable right from the beginning. Kind of having that reassurance from teachers that they will help the students to recap, recover topics that they hadn't yet learnt, help them prepare for upcoming exams if that's where students were at. And really just having that support so that students didn't need to feel like a failure and that actually they were on track to making progress. You suggested also having adjustments to the school day, which links to the kind of travel arrangements, but perhaps making the school day shorter so that perhaps you're not all together for as long. Perhaps, as I said before, starting the day at a different time or having year groups come in at slightly different times just to reduce the amount of people in one space at one time. And just making sure that there are lots of measures in place to ensure that you're safe from coronavirus, whether that is the social distancing, whether that's masks, whether it's making sure that people are sitting at separate desks in classrooms, just to make sure that everyone is safe. So those were the themes that came out, but we felt that there were such brilliant suggestions. We just wanted to share a few more with you. And perhaps there's something here that you feel would be helpful. Maybe you want to talk about it with your teachers. We will also be sharing this with your teachers as well, so they'll know about your suggestions too. So someone suggested a homework club where there's some teacher support, so it provides opportunity for you to catch up, or maybe even having fewer homework right at the beginning so that you don't feel overwhelmed and you're able to kind of get back into your normal routine. Perhaps even having some coaching lessons as an opportunity after school to support catching up with learning. Having ideas of remote teaching just in case we need it, so that students don't go back into a situation where they are at home and not able to access learning. Being able to know what it's going to be like. We all feel reassured when we know what to expect, and you felt that that was important too. So having teachers share with you what to expect when you first come back to school. Having that clear communication from school and staff with yourselves, but also with your families, just to make sure that everyone knows the same messages. And someone suggested an answer book. You know, having some maybe frequently asked questions with some key answers, just in case you're not sure of what's important and what you need to know at this time. As we mentioned before, making the school day shorter or starting after rush hour. Some of you felt that wearing masks would be really important. As Sarah mentioned earlier, kind of maybe being able to delete some of those pieces of work that you hadn't managed to accomplish over lockdown, so that you're sort of starting from afresh rather than feeling like you're starting from behind. Having that recap of learning and a supported catch-up plan was really important from yourselves.
Okay, so now we just want to go through and talk about what we as a team, or the educational psychology team, are planning on doing next.
So one of the key things that we want to do is report back to schools what you've told us. So we want schools to have the information that you've shared, the insights that you've given us about your experience during lockdown, your experience during the summer term, but also your concerns, aspirations, and your thoughts that will support getting back to school. So we're going to be providing a report to school based on the survey, and so we really thank you for being involved with the survey.
One of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to actually getting together like a resource pack that we're going to give to schools, so that all the people teaching you, all the people supporting you will have some ideas of for some activities that they can use to sort of support you transitioning back into school, but also just to support you kind of getting used to school again and getting used to the routine and the structure of the school day.
We've also put together a few suggestions that you can do during this period before going back to school. One of the things that we would suggest is talking to a trusted adult or talking to someone that you are really close with, whether that's a family member or friends. It could be talking about any concerns or worries you have about going back to school, or any of the things that you're looking forward to. we also suggest that it may be helpful to do a practice walk or practice journey on your way to school, especially for those of you who haven't been to school or haven't been out much. It can help you kind of familiarise yourself again with getting back into that routine.
And as Parminder was saying, kind of that routine is really important. And there are things that you can do perhaps to help you be ready to start back at school. We know that sleep is really important, help us feel good and be ready to deal with whatever we need to deal with. So you might want to make sure that you're getting into a bit of a sleep routine, going to bed at, a school night kind of time, and making sure that you're ready to get up in the morning so that you're not feeling rushed and you're ready to start your day. You might want to start gathering your resources that you need for school, whether that's a school bag or stationery. Maybe you've got some school books at home that you've been using. Just making sure that you feel that you've got everything that you need so that when you start back at school, you're on the best track for yourself to be ready to learn again.
So again, we want to thank you very much for being involved in the survey, and and also for joining us on the Zoom. So thanks. I'll say bye.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, Parminder.
No worries, I managed to move the meeting to 2.